Welcome everyone to our presentation this evening for the Sydney Central Branch of Renew. My name is Graham Hunt. I'm the co-convener of the Central Branch, and unfortunately you're going to have to put up with me talking to you tonight, but I'll be assisted by my wonderful co-convener Melanie Lupus, who will join us later. Melanie's from Sustainability Certified, and she's an accredited matters assessor and a scorecard assessor, and she recently gave a workshop with the council on this topic, and 2 months ago gave a presentation here on energy efficiency retrofits. But first, a bit of housekeeping. For those online, welcome. We're keen for you to put your comments into the chat, but if you have questions, can you please insert them into the Q&A tab? It's just so that we can keep tabs on the questions as they come in. We will keep our questions till the end. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and elders of this country, elders past, present and emerging. We're coming from Wongal country, the Jarawang, which is Ashfield, and we acknowledge the way the Indigenous people have sustainably looked after this land for millennia. So our topic tonight is about all electric homes. It's not a modern concept, but it's become more important because I think people are realising that gas always will be a fossil fuel, but there's also other issues with the gas network and with the use of gas. So what we'll be covering is we'll give you an overview, we'll talk a bit about the cost of the various fuels, emissions, and then the various appliance options if you're going to go to an all-electric home. And then if you decide to do that, how to go about it. I'll be covering the first three items, and then Mel will come in and do the last two. And at the end, we'll have a short case study. So all electric homes are not a new idea. Before the 1950s, there were quite a few different heating options, really healthy ones like kerosene, coal briquettes. When I was young, we had an open fireplace that we used to put coke into. But anyway, with the upgrading of the electricity network in the 50s, late 50s and 60s, it enabled the concept of all electric homes to develop. But then also in the 60s, we found oil in Bass Strait. It was easily accessed and it was relatively cheap. And the methane gas could be used for cooking and heating. So gas was cheap until from the 1970s to about 2010. And so there was a lot of development then of gas appliances. It became more popular, and whole house ducted gas heating became popular. Perhaps not used so much in Sydney. Often people would have had unflued gas heaters, just portable ones, which sort of can be efficient but very unhealthy. They give up nitrous oxide. It's like the old school heaters, the heaters we used to have in schoolrooms that used to send everyone to sleep in the afternoon. But the underfloor ducted heating, if you have that, it does use a lot of gas. And it's not extremely efficient, not only because of the efficiency of the boiler, which we'll come to, but you can lose a lot of heat through the ductwork, especially if it's old, if it's come adrift, vermin might have eaten into it and whatever. And so it needs to be checked regularly. So since 2010's Bass Strait supply has virtually run out, we've developed a big new supply in the Northwest Shelf, but we're flogging that off overseas as fast as we can. And being a fossil fuel, it's not going to be there forever. The supply will run out. Plus, we've also now gone to less efficient and less environmentally good processes such as coal seam gas and fracking. This chart just gives you a breakdown of the average power energy use, not power, energy use within a home in New South Wales. So the big uses are appliances, which covers your refrigerators, computers, TVs, all of that sort of thing. But the next two big elements are water heating, and there is a lot of gas water heating in New South Wales, plus space conditioning. A lot of that energy in New South Wales probably would be air conditioning, but a significant component is gas heating. And this chart just gives you a breakdown by state of the makeup of energy consumption depending on use, appliances, cooking, that's similar to the previous chart. And you can see the southern colder states and ACT have much higher space conditioning, and primarily that's all heating, and a lot of that is gas. So the need to change away from gas heating is much more important for those states than in New South Wales. You can see the need we have here for heating and cooling is much less, well, much less heating. But still, there is a significant factor. And the other one that's similar through all of these is the water heating. And there's an opportunity to reduce that. So cost. So Renew has done a fair bit of research in this area. And in 2014, we did a study, and then that was revised in 2018 about looking at the fuel choices for households that are available on the national grid or national network. And that report found that efficient electrical appliances may cost more to install, but they are more efficient and you will save money in the long term. Also pointed out that, like with power and gas, you pay a service fee. So just having a gas connection can cost around $3,000 over a 10-year period. There was a further report done in 2002 looking more at, if you want to transition away from gas, is it really worthwhile? Is there value in it? And so since the previous reports have been done, the cost of gas and power have both risen, and risen steeply again just in the last 18 months since this report has been done. So the figures in the report can actually be adjusted up because the costs are higher than what we had predicted 2 years ago. But the report found that dual fuel homes that have gas and power will have higher increases than all electric homes. And if all electric homes do have a solar PV system added, then they will have the lowest increases. But there's also a benefit in improving the thermal efficiency of your home by adding insulation, draft proofing, sealing. Means you're going to use less fuel, whether it's electricity or gas, for heating and cooling. There's often a conception, or there has been for a long time, that gas is cheaper than electricity. When you look at the raw energy per unit price, gas is significantly cheaper. And that is usually measured in megajoules, the conversion to kilowatt hours, so we can get a fair enough comparison. You can see that per unit per kilowatt, gas is significantly cheaper. But gas appliances aren't that efficient, and this changes the equation. A gas ducted heater is about the actual unit itself is about 80% efficient. So that means for every kilowatt of energy you put in, you're only getting 0.8 of a kilowatt out. An electrical alternative is reverse cycle air conditioning, which is basically a heat pump. Their efficiency can vary, but on average around 450% efficient. So that means for every kilowatt of energy you put in, you're getting 4.5 kilowatts of heat out. And the same with heat pump, electric heat pump, hot water systems compared to instantaneous gas. And the charts there sort of show the difference in the actual cost when you look at the consumption. From the Renew report, these are some costings that have been done to show what the annual energy bills would be in Eastern Sydney, starting at 2022 when the report was done, and then predicting likely increases through to next year. You can see a basic house with a dual fuel home that has gas and electricity is the most expensive to run. An all-electric home is cheaper, but an all-electric home with solar is cheaper again, because obviously the power produced by the solar can offset your consumption. The report also looked at the benefits of having more efficient homes. So if we then did that same exercise for a 7-star rated home, which is using the NADA system, you can see the savings are more again, and a 7-star all-electric home with solar is obviously the cheapest. So that's for Eastern Sydney. The next slide is for Western Sydney. And Western Sydney is a much more extreme climate in both winter and summer, so the energy consumption is more, but the relative effectiveness of these options remains the same. And you can see the savings are quite substantial. This is on an average basis. So we come to emissions, which is a crucial thing now. If we're really going to address climate change, we've seriously got to look at how we can reduce our emissions. And so what is better, gas or electricity? This chart shows annual emissions for different localities. And you can see for the colder localities such as Armidale that use a lot more gas for heating, their emissions for gas are very high. Sydney, because of our milder maritime sort of climate, our emissions aren't as high, but at the current point in time, our emissions from electricity is higher. So you'd be saying, well, why are you telling me to go to electricity? This is because most of our electricity is still coming from coal-powered power stations. The grid is going to transition. New South Wales had committed to a transition to 70% renewable by 2030. With the change of government, we're not sure if that's going to happen, but certainly we'll be getting close to that mark. And the other negative things about gas is that the actual sourcing of it is becoming dirtier and more environmental impacts as we go to coal seam gas and the impacts of fracking on the natural environment, on the water table. It creates vast amount of wastewater, and there's what's called fugitive gases, methane, which gets released in the process. And methane is the worst gas in terms of greenhouse impacts. I think I may not be correct, but I think it could be up to 10 times worse than CO2. 86 times. Well, there we go. In the first 20 years. Okay. Yeah. And this is another problem with the gas reticulation system, which was installed in the a long time ago, it's aging, and we're getting a lot of fugitive emissions from just the pipe network. And in the past, that hasn't really been counted in to the emissions that are coming from that system. And you may notice that sometimes you walk around the older suburbs, you may get a gas smell every so often. That's just methane going out. And the other negative consequence at the moment is that we're exporting a lot of gas, primarily from the North-West Shelf. But we're probably one of the only gas producers who hasn't locked in a secure price for its home market. We've just been too keen to flog it off.
I think WA locked in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The other point about backtracking is that the one that's Indigenous land.
Yes, another valid point.
And they're all opposed to it.
Yeah. So the counterpoint to that is electricity is getting greener. We're close to 30% renewable at the moment. And we're heading in the right direction, whether we'll get these targets or not. But it does mean when you make a change, like changing from gas to electricity, it's a fairly long-term thing. You buy an appliance, it's going to last you 20, 30 years. So the benefits of making that change aren't just your savings in the power bills for the next couple of years. It's what the emissions impact on that house, whether you're living there or not, for the next 20 or 30 years. So these two graphs, I'll be quick, show the difference in emissions between electricity and gas in 2022, and you can see electricity is much higher. But when we go to 2030, that's the predicted change. And you can see the electricity is dropping. Gas doesn't change that much. It may, I would suspect it's actually probably getting worse over that time with fugitive emissions and the deterioration in the network. But anyway, the renewable energy is coming into play. And the benefit with renewable energy is although the equipment that is going to collect it and produce it may need to be replaced in the future, the source is perpetual, or it's there for eternity, unless the sun blows up. So, you know, as opposed to gas, which is wherever we take it from, it's going to run out at some point. So now I'd like to hand over to Mel.
Thanks, Graham. And Graham will be back at the end for some more information for us. Okay. So, appliances, is there much difference? Yes, there is, and I know that Graham already alluded to this. This slide's just sort of showing that there's been an evolution of appliances since the 1960s. I was 72 baby, but I remember having a stove like this. Electric resistant hot water storage and electric. I'm not supposed to step away from the camera, am I? Sorry. Okay, I will try and stand here and just point. And then in the 1990s, as Graham also said, there was a real move to gas. It was cheap. It was a fast way. Everyone got used to cooking with gas. It was fantastic. Fast. Take your pot off the burner and it stops that heat, and much more reactive. Then if you go over the 2023 versions, we're looking at the induction cooktops, heat pumps and ACs, so air conditioners. So heat pumps, you hear a lot of people talking about heat pumps, and for us in Sydney, we're going, what are these heat pumps, these magical machines that can, you know, save us so much electricity? And wow. Most people would already have one, probably two in their homes, and that's your refrigerator is a heat pump, and so is an air conditioner. In Sydney, because our climate is quite mild, we have reverse cycled air conditioners, so we don't really think of them as heat pumps per se. We probably more use them for cooling, but around the world and in Victoria, they tend to call air conditioners heat pumps. And as Graham already said before, one of the best things about heat pumps is they are really, really efficient. So what they do is they use a refrigerant to collect heat from outside, and then they compress that heat, and then they move that heat, shift that heat, pump that heat where it needs to be. So whether that be in your into your air handling unit inside your home, where it's going to blow beautiful warm air over your lounge room, or whether it's into a hot water system, so a hot water tank. So, which is that one there. Is it? Nope, that one there. So with, yeah, like Graham said, with you put 1 kilowatt, for 1 kilowatt hour of electricity in, you can get up to 6 kilowatts of heat out. So yeah, they are magical things, are incredible.
6 or 5?
But you can get up to 6 in the aircon. Yeah, yeah. So they're heading there. So and like it says, the cold air is, even though we think it's freezing outside, compared to a refrigerant, it is able to pick up that heat. Okay. The same for a heat pump hot water, and I've sort of explained that already. So when it comes to hot water, if you've already got a gas system or electric storage system at your home at the moment, they typically last between 10 and 15 years. So if you're hitting around the 8-year mark, it's time to start doing your research, figuring out what you're going to replace it with, because you get about a 3-day turnaround before your family kills you if you haven't replaced that hot water system. Most people, what happens is it gets replaced with whatever is on the truck from the plumber that you've just called. He happens to have one out there. He's going to install it, makes all your problems with your family go away. The problem is you've just then locked yourself in for another 10 to 15 years of a potentially inefficient appliance. So do your research early. Start looking at what you want to put in. Electric heat pumps, particularly if you want to get off gas, electric heat pumps. Solar is a really good option as well. We'll come back to solar in a moment. Make sure that you size the tank for your household. And avoid the cheap brands if you can. Use a reputable installer. Just ring around, do your homework, I guess. There's a lot of good guys out there who are offering really good products and warranties. So
Stainless steel tanks.
yeah, stainless steel. We typically recommend the Reclaim or the Sandon are 2 examples that are really good. But like I said, do your homework. The best ones use CO2 as the refrigerant, as Graham was speaking about before. The global warming potential of the refrigerant is also important. So I know there's a lot of information there. Look for a high coefficient of performance, and the noise can be an issue. If you buy some of the cheaper ones and put it right next to your neighbour's bedroom, they may not be happy with you. So make sure, yeah, do a little bit of research on that. And
the other thing is, working on a company project at the moment. The difference between integrated and non-integrated.
yes,
So if you've got limited side passageway space,
yeah,
you can put a non-integrated heat pump outside with a tank in the garage.
yes.
And
Yeah. I'm not sure if everybody online can hear that. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll circle back to that one anyway, because that is really good information to have. And yeah, one of the things about you can have them either, as you were saying, there's an integrated system or a split system, and I think you can get up to about 10-metre distance between the compressor and the tank on some of the systems. So yeah, there's certainly a lot going on there. Reverse cycle air conditioning. You want to be sizing that correctly for the rooms that you're using. Split systems are always more efficient than ducted because there's losses in the ducts. You're looking for a high star rating. There's new ratings out there on air cons, the ZERL rating, which is related to your climate. So that the ER or the COP, if it doesn't have a star rating, you're looking for as high as you can get, and that's your coefficient of performance we were talking about before. And use a reputable installer. Make sure that they seal up behind where they put the air handling unit on the wall so that you don't have a big gap in behind that. Again, you're looking for a refrigerant with low global warming potential. For instance, an R32 is 70% less in global warming potential than an R410A, which is, you've seen a lot of the older air conditioning systems. So if you do replace an old one, make sure that that gas gets captured and not let out, or you've just destroyed all your goodwill that you're doing to try and reduce your energy use. If your house is well insulated and sealed, the air temperature really equalises. So you don't need one in every room. You try and pick and choose the ones that you spend the most time in. And yeah, use low fan speed and variable direction to warm, you know, without getting that draft. Okay, induction cooktops are interesting. I'm going to have to read my notes for this one because it's a little bit tricky. I have got one over there for us to all have a little look at in a little while. If you want to see what they're like, there's portable ones. So it's not always feasible just to quickly replace everything that you have as gas in your home. So the gas cooktop, if you are renting or if you're not in a financial position to be able to replace the gas cooktop immediately, you can use portable ones. You can get them from IKEA, appliances online, that sort of stuff. They're relatively cheap, I think like $69 or so. They're really good and a good alternative until you can, you know, put the full induction cooktop in. So I did a little, I'm going to explain to you how they work. So there is a bit of science in it. They work by running an electric current through a coiled copper wire underneath the cooking surface. So that creates a magnetic field that then induces, hence the word induction, a high electrical current through the cooking pan to produce heat. So basically the pan is the cooktop. So you're kind of cutting out that middleman. Instead of heating the stove, the heat pan, going straight to the pan. So that's where the heat is. If you take the pan off the cooktop's cold. I did a little experiment there. That's why I just got this pointed out here, that I boiled a litre of water on an induction cooktop on that portable one over there. Took me 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Then I boiled the same litre in the same pot on a gas stove. It took me 8 minutes 26. So everybody who says that gas is so fast, induction's way beyond that. So, you know, sometimes you just got to change your cooking style a little bit to get used to the fact that it is fast, and yeah, adjust that accordingly. Yes, you may. So you can test your pots and pans with the fridge magnet, see if it sticks. And it's got a little symbol on the bottom of the pots and pans that says it's suitable for induction. So, okay, now we'll put the thing down. Okay, so solar hot water is worth mentioning, particularly if you are in the inner west. If you're limited on space, you may want to investigate solar. It is normally more expensive than heat pump, but I guess you buy that space as well if you're going to have an integrated system on the roof. We have solar at our place, and it works fabulously. And that's everything that's on there. Hydronic heating. We don't tend to have a lot of hydronic heating in Sydney. You can get a heat pump system instead of a gas system. If you already have a gas hydronic system, it is expensive to retrofit, unfortunately. But if you were going to put it in, like, you know, from a new home, put in hydronic heating, a lot of people like that sort of radiant heat that they give. But as it's pointed out down the bottom, in Sydney, you know, if you've got a well-insulated home, it's a little bit overkill, I think. Okay. Oh, that was what I'm sorry. Yeah, it's difficult to switch it over just due to the radiator sizes. So if you're switching from gas to heat pump, you're better off going to an air conditioning system. Okay. So how do we do it? So I guess we should also make mention of the getting off gas. If you go to gettingoffgastoolkit.com, that's where this resource is, and it goes through all the steps of what you should do. One of the things we want to do is check out what rebates there are available. So there are hot water rebates, and your hot water suppliers, they can access that rebate for you as well. So you don't have to go down all these steps. They can then apply for it for you, like your solar guys do as well, your PV guys. There are rebates available for air conditioners, a little bit trickier system. If you go to the New South Wales government website about it, yeah, just sort of start the process. There are some, you have to go through particular suppliers, and it's a little bit tricky for our climate in Sydney, but watch this space because I think it's developing. And then there's also lighting upgrades that you can get, which is, you know, not about gas, but certainly about energy efficiency. You can access those rebates as well. So in terms of making the change, you could do it gradually. So like we talked about before, your appliances for hot water heating and for heating, your space heating, typically last like 10 to 15 years. Sometimes you can get, you know, 20 years out of them if you're lucky. But if you're sort of getting to the time where they're getting a little bit long in the tooth, you might start doing your homework for that and make sure that you're figuring out what you're going to replace it with and who can do it for you and all that sort of stuff. One of the things you need to look at is the electrical switchboard, and that goes for both the heat pump hot water as well as for an induction cooktop. It's likely if you've got an old switchboard that you're going to need some sort of work from an electrician to do that. And I was speaking to an electrician yesterday just to kind of get a rough idea of some prices, and to run the line, depending on the house, because, you know, everyone's got a different house configuration, but you're looking between 500 and 1,000 to run an electrical cable if you haven't got that sized for an induction cooktop. So if it's not already available, then you may need to spend a little bit of money on that. If your switchboard is really old, that is something that really needs doing anyway. So I wouldn't really count that into switching from gas to electric, but it's certainly something you need to build in and ask the electrician about that as well. So get some pricing for that. So don't just go out and buy a brand new induction cooktop and then think, yeah, I'll just go and throw it in there. It doesn't work that way. You need to, there's a few steps involved, and hence the toolkit can help you with that. Okay. So there are special cases that you might find that you stay with gas for various reasons. So if you have very, very low water consumption, it's one person, you have really efficient shower heads and you're having, you know, not very many showers in the week, then maybe you'll get you'd keep your instantaneous gas hot water heater. Or if you've got a really big solar system, you might stick with a resistive electric hot water system. And I think we spoke about that one in a previous workshop, where you can get a PV diverter to charge that hot water system so it can act like a bank. And in a situation where there's no room for a heat pump hot water system, which is typically on the ground, then maybe you'd look at solar thermal or evacuated tubes are the most efficient. And potentially with induction cooktops, you might really, really love gas and wok cooking. There are now induction cooktops that have wok, a wok burner in them. So you can have that as a separate sort of section to your yeah, or easiest solution, flat bottom wok. Absolutely, and a lot cheaper because I think they're about $5,000.
Yeah, the one with the
yeah, that I've got that nice. Okay, and then if you're off grid, you may need gas as a backup. So yeah, you may not be able to generate enough of electricity. So closing your gas account, you need to close the account so you don't have to, you know, still be paying that daily charge. You need to speak to your gas retailer first, and obviously they can be a little bit funny about then losing a customer, so, you know, be assertive. I had a quick look on the Gemini website, and this is what they're showing. An abolishment fee is greater than, you know, around about $1,150, whereas if you just want the meter disconnected, it's 112. So
what's the abolishment?
That's where they come and take away the entire meter, dig it up from your place to the street, and then cap it out at the street connection. So, I mean, understandably, there's a fair bit involved for them to do that, right? So it is expensive. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about it after. Yeah, I've got a little bit more to add to that, but we'll come back to that because I don't want to miss out on Graham's case study. So what if there's an electricity outage? Well, a lot of people think, oh no, electricity's out and I've only got electric hot water now. How's it going to work? Well, most gas, like gas instantaneous, doesn't work without electricity anyway, and even some storage gas. I mean, you'll get some for a few hours. So it's not really that much different. And sorry, Graham, I'll go quick. What else I'm going to do? Yeah, okay, so that's it. But for now, the very first thing you can do to cost you absolutely nothing is to just start heating with your aircon instead of your gas heater, if you've got a gas heater, and see what happens to your next bill. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have a really old, inefficient, ducted air conditioner that's just running their whole house, then that's not going to be comparable. Your bill's going to go up. But if you get an efficient system that is zoned and working well, absolutely you're going to be saving money. And then if you're building a new home, avoid the gas and seal it up well because you don't need that extra ventilation due to the gas having all those toxic fumes inside your home. And sweet spot is about 7 to 8 stars, like Graham mentioned before. And yeah, it can be hard to retrofit an older home to 7 stars, but the difference that you can make just by insulating and sealing up all the gaps and cracks is just amazing. It's astounding. So worth doing. And solar panels go well with an all-electric home. Obviously, if you are going to be staying in the same home for the next 5 years, it's worth doing as long as you get some sun. Then you can run all your appliances between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and take advantage of that, your own solar. And batteries are a possibility as well that you can add into that. And maybe even think about going electric, all electric, which is the electric car as well. Okay, I'm going to hand over, and there's rebats to that, but I'm going to hand over to Graham now.
Right, thank you, Mel. Yes, I'm going to talk about briefly about a case study, which is the renovation of my own home, which we did in 2019. It was fairly minor renovation, but we used it as an opportunity to make the home more efficient. It was a single-story terrace with an attic bedroom or 2 bedrooms upstairs. The rear bedroom upstairs was a 1970s asbestos-clad, uninsulated room with a big, large western-facing window. So we got rid of that and put in a new bedroom with a larger north-facing window because there aren't any north-facing windows in the whole house. So it is quite cold in winter, or was, but cool in summer. Elsewhere in the home, we replaced older windows with new timber windows. We added blinds. This is one on the top right-hand corner is a honeycomb blind, which are insulated well. Even timber shutters, well-made timber shutters can seal. This is just a roller blind, but I've added a trim on the side to minimise the air gap or create more of an air gap between the blind and the window. We've sealed around all the old existing doors, and we added a 3 kilowatt PV system. The challenge with the PV system, we're in a heritage conservation area. Our neighbour to the north is a 3-story terrace, and we couldn't angle the panels up because we would create more overshadowing to our neighbour to the south. So we were limited in our placement, so they've been laid flat on the rear roof. So in winter, they don't perform brilliantly, but in summer, we do well out of it. So as well as that, we use this as an opportunity to replace a lot of equipment in the home. Previously, the house had an unflued gas heater, which was probably nearly 20 years old. We decided at one point it should be serviced, and the serviceman said it's too dangerous to use. So we got rid of that. This was a year before we renovated, and we temporarily used some resistive convection heaters just for heating, but that really blew out our power bills. But when we renovated, we installed 2 split systems, one for the new bedroom and one in the living room downstairs. But we also installed efficient DC ceiling fans in most of the rooms to help with cooling. And ceiling fans are good because they can assist air conditioning to circulate the cooler air around the room and get more even distribution. And being DC fans, their energy consumption is probably a quarter of what more conventional older AC fans. And these ones are very quiet as well. We can just run them at a low speed and they just make the place much more comfortable. And then last year, we replaced the gas cooktop, which was well past its use by date. One of the burners wasn't working. They'd often blow out if we opened the door and got a breeze through. And it's been, as Mel was saying, we've found it easy to use. We've bought a flat bottom wok, and you know, the controls easy to clean. So it's been a bit of a revelation for us. We upgraded exhaust fans in the bathrooms and did a lighting upgrade, which helped with our overall energy consumption. So in summary, what does it mean? Back when we had the unflued gas heater, in summer we're using 9 to 10 kilowatt hours a day, up to 12 to 13 kilowatt hours in winter. But with gas, we were using just about half a kilowatt hour a day for cooking. But in winter, we were up to nearly another 4 kilowatt hours. So in total, in winter, we were using about 17, 18 kilowatt hours a day. It was cheaper then, but in summer, per quarter, we were paying about $400, which wasn't a big bill. I mean, it's a fairly small home and we're pretty frugal with our power use. But in winter, it would go up over 500. And as I mentioned, we got rid of the gas heater and temporarily used some resistive electric heaters. And so our consumption in winter went up quite a bit. Also, the rates had gone up in that period. And so our bills in winter get higher. But now we're sitting currently at under 9 kilowatt hours a day in summer, 11 to 12 in winter. We're on a time of use tariff now. So it's very hard to compare the rates, but it does mean, as Mel mentioned, that we're more conscious now because we pay, I think, over 40 cents a kilowatt hour in the peak, which is 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. We pay about 24 or 25 in the shoulder period and about 14 off peak. So we do all our dishwashing after 9 o'clock. We do our clothes washing earlier in the day, and we just try and be a bit more conscious. And what has actually happened is our peak consumption is quite low compared. We actually have more consumption in the shoulder period. The other thing I didn't mention is that we already had a must be before. There was in the house an electric hot water storage system, a conventional one, which wasn't that old. So rather than get rid of that and replace it with a heat pump, because it was installed right in the middle of the home, so trying to get a condenser to the tank didn't work. So we put a timer on it so that it now only comes on during the morning period and through the middle of the day, so when we're getting input from the PV. So overall, it means we're getting a saving of around 30%, even though the prices have gone up over that period, and even though we've added all this extra electrical equipment, fans, AC, although I must say we don't use the AC and the fans a great deal in summer. They're there when we get those really uncomfortable days, but because we've done a lot with the windows and ceiling and insulation, the house is generally quite comfortable. We do use a fair bit, the AC a fair bit in winter for heating, but only on really colder days. We probably haven't turned it on for about 3 or 4 weeks because it's been quite reasonable of late. And that's the main outcome, irrespective of what we pay, is that we have a much more comfortable and healthier home. And that's hard to put a price on. So these are some useful resources. You probably all can't get them now. We're happy to share the slides. We can send that out to all the participants. But just running through them, we've talked about the New South Wales government saving options. If you're not sure how to proceed or how efficient your home is, you can get a scorecard assessor like Mel to come and do an assessment on your home. If you're struggling to pay your bills or you're on limited income, you can apply. There is options to get any national energy bill relief. There's also the New South Wales government page here has a lot of information on energy efficiency and solar panels, etc. The federal government has a publication, which is also online, called Your Home, which has a lot of information if you're looking at renovating or building a new home or even doing a retrofit. But the one thing that we have as Renew is we've generated a Getting Off Gas Toolkit. And so the link's there. If you go to that, it'll help you to go through on a step-by-step basis of how you have to plan and the things to consider when you want to do a transition. There is also New South Wales government has set up a page where you can look for contractors who can help you with the process. So that's brought us to the end of our presentation. So we can go to some questions. But just to highlight, we have a Facebook page. Maybe if Mia would be able to put the links from that into the chat. If you've got any comments or questions, please go to that Facebook page and leave them there, and we'll respond. But we also have a YouTube channel. We are recording these meetings. We haven't got any of the current ones up there yet, but they will be going up, I'd say, in the next week. And you'll be able to access all our previous meetings. But anyway, if anyone first we'll start with questions from the floor, and then we may go to questions online.
Yes.
A couple of months ago, I put solar panels on the roof, and I've just had my first bill, and now I've got an additional charge that I never had with the old electric smart metering, and I now get a maximum demand on top of the availability charge of the actual units I've used. I now get a third charge, maximum demand. I don't quite understand it, but Red Energy said everyone will be transitioning to this in the near future.
Yeah, they have talked about this coming in. I personally don't know much about it, but Renew has written a couple of articles on this. I think if you give us your details, we'd be able to find those references and send them to you.
I mean, I was disappointed we could get an extra charge.
So it's interesting because I'm with Diamond Energy and I just put solar panels on and I got my first bill.
Well, I am thinking of changing.
Yeah, I didn't get that charge.
Apparently it's in South Australia and WA a lot. They're gradually changing the whole country too. You can do it if you've got a smart meter.
The outcome is that, I guess what it is that they're trying to equalise the benefit that you're getting from solar to other
You
people.
get penalised using it between 3 AM and 9 AM, that's a bit better. You do get like a penalty for using too much power between 3 PM and 9 PM.
Yeah.
So they're trying to switch. That's very hard to do if you normally have a meal about 6 o'clock.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
Few points I'll just touch on that one. July 1 next year, all of the network providers in New South Wales and ACT will start a two-way charging program where they'll charge you to export in a solar window of 2 AM and 2 PM. But they'll give you a feed-in tariff between 2 PM and 8 PM or 3 PM and 9 PM. This is because we've got excess feed during the day and they want to encourage everyone to load shift when it's needed. So what's quite interesting is that we've got the solar and the battery, we're going to incentivize to the very battery. So battery is going to become at the centre of the solar system, another nice to where we need to. So that should be, if you get a battery, then you can start looking at programs of linking up your solar system to a virtual power plant where you get to trade your power and surges and stuff like that. So you can make revenue from the so there's some strategies involved in how you approach this. Too much to now, but something going for another.
Yeah, we could consider having a talk on
the
that.
other is I found located in China a bench top induction wok cooker with a concave induction base where the wok fits inside it and heats the whole wok 240 degrees, and I found a distributor now for that in Australia. So that including the wok, thanks to the wok, it's at $900 to get that.
Okay. It's cheaper than what I saw on the market today. So yeah, that's good. And like Graham's doing with his what you were saying about that load shifting, so he's doing his hot water, try and soak up some of that excess solar. Using your hot water as a battery is always, a good idea. Even with your heat pump, if you choose to go with heat pump instead of electric storage, if you're running that obviously when your solar's going well. And I've got solar hot water, and sometimes a bit of thought needs to go into that in terms of if you're going to run it on, it's electric resistive inside the tank as the backup. But I chose to put it on time of use because it's we shower in the morning. So then if you have it, so if it needs to kick in, like it's allowing the solar to be used, but if it needs to kick in, it'll kick in. Otherwise, if it's already heated by the time the sun comes up because it's been heated overnight off peak, then you're kind of wasting a little bit of that use that you can have. It's pretty complex thinking through all that. Sorry if I didn't explain it very well.
I think some people are putting in a lower electrical element.
Yes.
Standard element is 3.6 kilowatt, and
Just have one more question from the floor.
Well, I guess this is more of a comment than a question. I mean, if they're going to do that, then they should be increasing, speeding up the change to electric vehicles and allowing vehicles to be used as a battery so you can both charge from the solar and feed it back in to run your house during the evening. Because that's what I intend to do. I don't want to buy a battery and then buy an electric vehicle because electric vehicle is a battery. But they're really dragging their heels on the electric vehicle program. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's
concerned about exporting to hidden load and burning substation.
sure, I can understand that, but what I mean is that they need to speed up the electric vehicles process because we're way behind everybody else in the years, and then you don't have to buy a battery and a vehicle, electric vehicle like a battery.
And we need more electric vehicle options that are bi-directional.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Ones that you can power it, use as a battery.
trials in South Australia, but it's not available everywhere else, and it's not all cars can be on.
Yeah, I think the ACT, the government there is purchased like 500,
Right.
and I think it's the missing link
Missing
there.
link.
And then that basically is, if we've got too much solar, right, all of those government vehicles go and plug in and let's soak it up. So, I mean, they are working towards it, but then you've got companies like your Teslas, they don't want that bi-directional, because, and I can understand from their point of view, they're warranting that battery for a car use, right? When we start using that as a house battery, then how does that warranty work? Because they've only figured out warranty
I won't
as
be
a
buying
car.
a Tesla.
So, yeah, good. If you want to be using it for that bi-directional, then absolutely, yeah, do your homework on it. But they are available. But like you say, it's a little bit slow to come to fruition at the moment. But you could at least use it as a soak, like Graham and water
sure.
heater.
Yeah.
If we don't have any more questions from the floor, do we have any questions online?
We have, we're just getting the point.
Oh, actually, I'll just say it out loud. So Rob online has a question. Is the gas price you're using still valid? It is much more expensive in Victoria.
The gas prices were, I did update them to what they were on average in New South Wales.
Yep. Another question from Janet is, I have electric underfloor in the ensuite plus solar panels. Will tiles retain heat if only run with sunlight?
Well, up to a point, it depends on how insulated and where the ensuite is, whether it's an whether the space under the floor is exposed. Usually for a bathroom or ensuite, you're only heating it for the short term when you're in there. So it may depend on when you're going to shower. You might want to change your showering routine to be in the middle or late afternoon.
And if it's just electric resistive underfloor, is it hydronic or is it just electric resistive often in a bathroom situation? And that's the same, it doesn't have that coefficient performance of a heat pump run hydronic system where you're gaining that extra oomph from the refrigerant and everything else.
I would certainly not recommend underfloor electric heating for general heating. It's used to heat in bathrooms, which is because it's short term, that's probably fine. But
Small space.
if you're going to use it for your whole home, you'd be running down one of the power stations.
Yeah. Well, some people say they want to do that and then run it off their solar. So I understand it, but the air conditioning system or heat pump, whatever you want to call it, is much more efficient.
There's another question from Peter. It's a bit of a long one. I might just give it to you in parts. So Peter says, electrifying our homes is great. However, I found the delays and roadblocks are getting reputable professional advice on the details of appliances. It needs to say, our council used to have the AEF, the Australian Energy Foundation, as a middleman group to direct questions to reputable full-time paid advisors. Why can't the government, be it state or federal, take up this gap and provide a service where specific advice can be sought and localized, variation can be addressed, and the transition to efficient electrical appliances can happen sooner? And then, for example, I want to find out how to get a heat pump that could be turned off when we are away. It took me many years to find an advisory service, and it could have helped with specific problems that were not always properly addressed by installers who may not have full product or market knowledge.
Right. Well, read Renew. That's my simple answer to that one. Renew does have a lot of really good articles on and goes through product analysis, that sort of stuff.
And there's a lot of information in the Getting Off Gas Toolkit.
Yep.
That'd be the first place to start.
Yep.
The federal government in the last budget has dedicated quite a bit of money to educating and creating opportunities for people to be advised on energy efficiency. That is probably going to be delivered through the banks. So if you're applying for a loan, they will do an assessment on your home. But they're also putting a lot of money into the matters for existing homes, so that there's a high probability in the next few years there'll be a mandatory disclosure process coming in where homes will have to declare their energy efficiency. And with that, there will have to be a lot of education and upgrading of industry to help people make the changes they'll want to. If they've got a poor rating, which has to be potentially declared when you sell or rent a house, then you'll want to upgrade your house to get a better sale price. And so there will be a demand that will come from the public for that. And I believe the government has allocated money in the budget to develop in that area. Okay, well, that brings us to a close. I'd like to thank Mel for assisting.
Graham.
And I'd also like to thank in the background Stephen and Ed and Kel and Rishma, and also Mia, who is way in the background helping us send this out live. Just before we go, just to let you know, next month we're having a talk on rainwater and greywater systems with John Cayley, who's a local expert. We were going to have this earlier in the year, but unfortunately John wasn't able to come. So that's on Thursday, the 12th of October at 6 p.m. It'll be here, but also it'll be available online. So anyway, that's all from us, and thanks for tuning in, and thanks for coming.